Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. Here with me is Marc, Shaiman, and Scott Wittman behind the music of the new Broadway musical, Some Like It Hot. Uh, you guys, this score is so much fun, and I'm wondering, how did you land on this specific kind of style? Was there a sound, or did the style immediately jump out to you for this musical?
Well, what happened was Matthew Lopez, our book writer, and Casey Nicola, the director, they wanted to move the period out of the away from what it was in the movie, which was sort of flapperish and Charleston-y. And so Matthew felt it was important at the end of the story that prohibition be repealed. So he thought that was a happy ending for everyone because now they could drink in public. So that, of course, changed the period a great deal because it took us out of the flapper era and into a different era of music that would also, be Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and those great black singers who toured on band buses and trains, and so it opened up another world of another vocabulary.
And for me, although wanting to stay pure-ish to the sound of the 30s, but on the other hand, I'm about to contradict that completely because I just took an MGM view of it all. Because if you watch classic MGM movies, whether it's Singing in the Rain, which took place in the 20s, or MGM movies of the 30s or 40s, or the classic ones from the 50s where they're looking back on all those eras, it just sounds like MGM. The big band and the strings and everything, it just sounds like classic MGM sound. So I didn't want to try to be like this was a documentary. And I just wanted to make use of all the great sounds of really almost like 3 decades worth of swing and elegant, romantic, joyous music. So that's what I did musically.
And it's interesting because this had actually been previously adapted into a musical before in the 70s, Sugar. Did you have to did you look at that at all to say like, okay, well, we can't do anything like this. It has to exist separately.
Well, I'm old enough to have seen it, and so I it was that was a case of where they took a movie and decided not to tamper with it at all, and so they basically put the movie on stage. And there's some great numbers in it, but we never went back and referred to it. We actually our story is based on the movie, but that's sort of the DNA of it. It's not the story we're telling all the way through. It's a
I,
contemporary version of what that story would be.
I think,
Yeah.
once or twice, Scott and I actually did for a second, because I didn't know the show. I did go to see friends who did a community theater production of it in Plainfield, New Jersey, when I was, I think, 14. And that is literally the only time I ever heard anything from it. But now and then, as we were trying to think of, well, what should this song be or what shouldn't it be, we would quickly listen to something from Sugar, not in a pejorative way of saying, oh, we're not going to do that, but just wanted to know, let's do something different, or let's find some kind of different angle, whether it's like Osgood singing in Sugar, and in the movie Osgood is a funny dirty old man, and that's pretty much all it is. And in our show he's much more. And so that was one song that I did give a quick listen to what Sugar was like, just so that we knew, let's
But our
just
characters
take
are
the
wrestling with very contemporary situations in a way that they didn't have words for back then in the movie, and
Absolutely.
and when they did Sugar on stage.
Yeah. Well, one of the, speaking of characters being quite different, the character of Sugar is kind of completely reinvented. She's quite different from Marilyn Monroe's iteration in the film, and you introduce her with this great jazzy, bluesy torch song, Darker Shade of Blue. What about it? Why was that song, that sound, the way you wanted to introduce her?
Well, because
that well that yeah.
in our heads were those great ladies Lena Horne and their collaborations with songwriters like Harold Arlen and Yip Harburg, and in the movies Marilyn we try to remove it as far from Marilyn as possible, which I think we succeeded. But in the movie, she sings "Runnin' Wild," which is a very flappery, fast-paced tune, and we both thought, oh well, couldn't it be more like how you meet Judy Garland in the Star is Born, where it's more of a relaxed torch ballad with a band around her. So and her, obviously it played into her story where she she gets tragically involved constantly with saxophone players. So
but it's another example where, without wanting to fix what isn't broke, play a little with the DNA, so instead of her starting with an up tempo, we gave her a ballad. And at the end, where Marilyn Monroe sings a ballad, our last song starts as a ballad, but becomes a declaration of, a survival song. And that was something with the character also, of trying to make her a little less of a, for lack of a better phrase, doormat. I mean, it should be someone who does eventually keep finding herself in this position, but has a stronger sense of self. And that was the first thing the producers, when they came to us, at first they were like, no. We've been working on so many projects of iconic movies or stories, and no, we do not want to do that again. But when they said, well, we've been thinking like that sugar should be black, and they were thinking like, what could make it different from the movie so that people aren't, that maybe that was one of the problems with Sugar, is that poor Elaine Joyce was forced to basically do a Marilyn Monroe imitation. And that was a smart idea of our producer, saying, let's take it somewhere else. And then the fact that she was going to be black, as Scott mentioned, just opened up to the great iconic singers of the early 30s, where we could write for a character in that style. And that really excited us. And our no quickly became a yes.
Yeah. It's funny that you all created music for Smash, the series, which features Marilyn Monroe, and now you've created a show that Marilyn Monroe starred in the movie, but must deviate from the Marilynisms.
Yeah,
it's a bit.
It's like being John Malkovich. It's like going in the door, and the door, and the door. So,
yeah.
And you actually use a song from Smash in this "Let's Be Bad," just with it's repurposed with some new lyrics. What about that song? What was the journey there that made you say, oh, this could fit with this show?
Well, we had written a song.
We had written it, yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
We had written a song that I'm trying to remember even how it went, and the fact that I can't remember how it went. It was kind of a south of the border, but kind of a sly kind of song for the girls to say, let's go south of the border. And the title of the song was "The Good Neighbor Policy." And I think it was in 2 readings. And then after that second reading, Casey Nicholaw said to us, could it be something hotter? Yeah, what else you got? And so we went home, and Scott, you can pick up from there.
So yeah, we went home, and we were sitting there, and we're going, let's go crazy. Let's be.
Oh, Prince did that.
All of those, and then finally, I said to Mark, we wrote the song already, and it was, and it was from Some Like It Hot musical that Marilyn was doing within the Smash story, and so we thought that's the song, and let's rewrite the lyrics so that they're for Osgood, and so that was actually great fun to do. And the great thing is that now it stops the show every night, so it's great. It's a great treat for Smash Easter eggs, and great for people who are just experiencing it in the theater.
And it's an interesting experiment in that in our show, Some Like It Hot, it's totally joyous. It's just a happy, wonderful explosion of joy and throwing off of the day's problems. And on Smash, it was there to basically be like not so much the subtext, but the actual text of Marilyn Monroe just being this bad girl who just kept defying authority and showing up late and not doing what she was supposed to. So that's why we wrote that song, to work for the Some Like It Hot on Smash, but also speak to Marilyn Monroe's character and also speak to Ivy Lynn's character. And so it becomes on Smash like a nervous breakdown of someone just piling on you know, I'm, you know, just gonna be bad. And then, so it's just very different. The intent and the way it comes across and finishes up.
Yeah, they exist in two
And if
very
we're,
different
and
ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And who knows, if we're lucky enough, we'll have maybe 2 shows running at the same time that have this same song in it. But well, luckily, when we called our producers and the director and pitched this idea, they all went, "It's a great idea. Let's do it." And if it's just a conversation piece on Broadway of like, "Can you believe there's the same songs in 2 shows?" It's like, it just happened so naturally. It wasn't that we're lazy, you know. We'd love to write songs, so it just was so right.
Yeah. Well, another character featured in that number is Daphne, who is also another one who's very reinvented from the movie. And Daphne kind of goes on this journey of discovering their, you know, true gender identity. But it's at a time where they don't like, you know, we didn't have as much nuance and language for trans identities for people who are non-binary and all this, you know, language we have today. So how did that affect your process with writing that character?
Well, we wanted it to be a joyous experience for the character, because the character is on the way to discover something about themselves. They all are. They're on a train, and by the end of this journey, everyone's learned something about themselves and their own identity that they didn't know when they started the show. So um, um, they might not have had the words for it, but the feelings might have been there. So we wanted to express the joy in that, in that way, musically and lyrically, to say I'm really happy now with who I am, and I might wear a dress one day and I might wear a suit the next, but you know, I love who I am, and that's really what we wanted to say in that. So.
I think my
And if you see
favorite.
the show,
Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, go for it. I don't want to interrupt
Well,
you.
I was gonna say, if you see the show a second time, but then you just said you already did, which thank you for that. You
I'll see it a
really do
third
see
time.
the progression in the first few scenes. Jerry, who becomes Daphne, he has lines saying, "I don't know, I just don't feel like, you know,
This
I don't,
doesn't
Joe,
feel
I don't know why
right.
you're so happy with living this way. It's just something's wrong, something's missing." And even in Jay's performance, he brilliantly, along with the writing, little
Calibrate
by
that.
little, just becomes more and more at ease until finally, you know, in the middle of Act 2, they're ready to just say, "I've made this huge discovery,"
But
or I'm on my way to making a discovery.
But Matthew Lopez has told us he saw a published version of the Billy Wilder script where it says the end, and it says the world isn't ready for what happens next. Well, in 2023, we obviously are, and so we felt it was a reason to do the show. So that had a lot to do with it.
That's a great
And
tagline.
though you say the word reinventing, to me, in the movie, it's already kind of there in the fact that Jack Lemmon totally enjoys being a woman in it and doesn't flinch when Osgood proposes and is actually over the moon and giddy. Now, yes, it's all played for laughs, but it's also not played with any kind of, "Oh, I can't do this," or an uncomfortableness about who he's being and becoming. So we really just pushed it further to like, where else, how much further could this go? But the
Yeah.
seeds were planted there, you know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you were saying that they're on a journey in discovering, because it's nice. What I appreciate about watching it was that you, as the audience, discover that with them in real time. Especially in that number, "You Could Have Knocked Me Over with a Feather," which is such a great visual and great performance by Jay. What can you just talk about the creation of that song? What went into it? Because it's a knockout.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you. I mean, we wanted it to. I mean, it started with trying to make a showcase piece for this character, obviously, and so there were things that are. I kept thinking about other great songs that like that. Like there was a years ago, Yubi was it UB Blake write it? Is it Sweet Georgia Brown? I'm unclear.
No, it was there in the show Bubbling Brown Sugar, which was a great review in, I guess, the mid-'70s, where there was this great arrangement of the old song Sweet Georgia Brown. This woman named Vivian Reed had a huge success with this number. They really slowed it down. And she does this great slinky way through it, and then then it went, exploded into this fast walking bass version, and then ended with just big show-stopping show business.
But
and
that
so
felt
we really
like
did.
the heartbeat of Daphne was that,
Yeah.
the discovery through the song, and then just pure joy of come blow your horn for me now. So.
And then Scott is the king of titles. And I gotta, say that of all the titles, what a brilliant metaphor, because like you could have knocked me over with a feather. I mean, knock me over is something kind of very masculine. And then with a feather is feminine. And, it was just the perfect match of imagery to get us started. I think that song was kind of really flowed out of us. Some of them, you really take for days and days just staring at each other. But that one, we really sat down and just dove right in.
Well, it works beautifully. And I would like to switch gears for a moment before I let you go, because I am a huge Disney Parks nerd, and we just got some news today and some concept art today of Rogers the Musical, which you're premiering in out in California Adventure in June. And that was such a great number you had on Hawkeye with the Avengers number. Is there anything you can kind of tease for us about the style of this music and creation of that music?
Well, we haven't been so involved in it except for the song. So I know that they use our song in it, and I think they use one of Alan Menken's songs in it as well. So
from the first Captain America movie,
right, for the Captain America movie. But I do know that the song was reprised a few times. We've been so busy with Some Like It Hot and we've been working on another project, so we really haven't been actively involved in the conception of that. But we're excited to see it.
Yes, I can't wait to see it actually on a stage. It'll be great. And what's also great is Some Like It Hot. So everyone, check out Some Like It Hot on Broadway. And Scott, Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up with us through the rest of this season. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.